Let me make a small intro in Greek. Είμαστε εδώ πέρα με τον Jameson Lopp, έναν επαγγελματία Cypherpunk, τον ιδρυτή του Statosi.info και από τους πρώτους Bitcoin Core Developers που υπάρχουν, Bitcoin Veteran, εδώ στο συνέδριο στο Decentralized, για την ευκαιρία να μας πει δύο λόγια. So, we're going to switch it in English. Jameson, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. As far as from your resume, I could find that you are a professional Cypherpunk, Bitcoin Core Developer, Bitcoin Veteran, CEO of Kaza project, many things. So, first of all, welcome to Greece. As you told me, it's your first time here, right?
Yeah, nice to be here.
You should definitely come on the summer because it's better to enjoy the season, the views and the physical wealth that Greece has. But you're a busy man, right?
Unfortunately.
So, here in Greece we had to experience the hard way with the financial crisis, what how the money supply is, the money are held. So, as most Bitcoin veterans say, not your keys, not your money. We had to understand that money in your bank, not your money again.
Exactly.
So, is Bitcoin and blockchain the answer?
Well, I think it's part of the solution, but we've seen that even with Bitcoin, a lot of people still end up just using Bitcoin banks, as it were, whether Coinbase or their exchange where they bought it and never actually taking it off the exchange. There's a lot that still needs to be done. This is why, even though I've been working full-time in the Bitcoin space for 4 years, I'm still working on very boring, low-level key management stuff. It's because I think that the key management problem has still not fully been solved. It's still far too easy to screw up and to lose your keys if you're not a very sophisticated user. We need to make it easier for the average person to attain the level of security that Bitcoin promises.
Nice. I was wondering, reading your Wikipedia page, what does a professional Cypherpunk do?
Yes, well, the professional part is a little bit of a joke, but really, the interesting thing about the whole Cypherpunk title is I think that I created the professional Cypherpunk as my title because a lot of people were calling me self-proclaimed Cypherpunk.
Self-proclaimed.
And that, in my opinion, self-proclaimed Cypherpunk is redundant because a Cypherpunk is someone who advocates for privacy-enhancing technology. So you have to proclaim it.
Yes.
If you're not advocating for it, then you're not proclaiming yourself as a privacy advocate. So, I just kind of do that to throw people off. But, really, with the idea being that if we can kind of push the needle in the other direction, if we can stem the tide of privacy loss that is continuing to happen as technology continues to go in the direction that it has been, centralizing all of our data in a few places. If we can push it back the other way, then hopefully we can actually make larger changes to society in general.
Very nice. This sounds very nice.
It sounds very nice, but it's an enormous problem, and I don't think that it can be solved by just a few people. But one of the main ideas behind the Cypherpunk movement is that as technologists, you can create code that cannot be stopped. So if you can create code that it may even be fairly simple code, that if that code has even the smallest impact, it can then be replicated to have an enormous impact. So I guess the kind of way that I view myself and how I want to have an impact upon the world is that I want to use my skills as a technologist, as a computer scientist, to create software and basically get software adopted that will help people improve their privacy, preferably in a way where they don't even have to think about it.
Exactly. Because I was thinking sometime when I started learning about Bitcoin and blockchain, I said, okay, your key is your Bitcoin, but you have to take care of the safety and everything about the two-factor authentication, your keys, your everything, and I was paralyzing it with, okay, you can take your money home, but you have to have a security home, a better door, some barrels on your fences. You
really
have
do you have to be your own bank.
And then, even if it can be busy, you have to know karate, you have to carry a gun, you have to know martial arts, and then okay, it's your money. But okay, these things may frighten somebody. So are we gonna see in the near future like user-friendly blockchain and cryptocurrencies?
You know, I don't think that it's possible to fix that at a protocol level. I think that we need to build additional layers of abstraction on top of these protocols. So I think that the problems that the protocol developers are worried about are not the problems that I'm more worried about as a application developer, where while I'm interfacing with the protocol and the stuff that I do, what I'm trying to do is to make it so the user doesn't have to interface with the protocol, right? Is that I want the user to be able to tap a button on their screen and be able to perform what is essentially an extremely complex interaction with this network that is operating out somewhere. And I want the user to be able to have this type of security by simply following the directions on their screen. This is what we've done with our Vault product at Casa, is that we are trying to mash up the usability of a mobile phone app with the security that you get from the Trezor, the Ledger, the dedicated hardware key management devices. And the problem that, like, if you go buy a Trezor or Ledger, the first thing that happens when you take it out of the box is it says, turn it on, now write down these 12 or 24 words, and then it says, keep them in a safe place. and that phrase right there is just encapsulates all the stuff you were talking about. Get a better door, worry about flood and fire and all of this other stuff. And so, what we have been trying to do at Casa is make it so that all of that is actually kind of baked into the product itself. Where if you're using our solution and you just follow the directions on the screen where you're plugging in your Trezors and Ledgers and then putting them in geographically separate areas, then that is automatically giving you the security from pretty much all of these different type of attack vectors and loss vectors simply by spreading out your risk. And so that way we don't have to tell the user, make sure that you have like a waterproof bag and a fireproof safe and all this other stuff. But rather it's just built upon the idea that a terrible calamity isn't going to happen in 3 different places simultaneously.
And okay, this sounds for an average user like you are becoming the bank, so you are becoming the trusted intermediary for keeping the seed words or whatever. You don't keep them yourself.
Correct.
Or if I lose them, can you back them up? No. So we've talked about that, but we don't even want to back them up because that creates more security issues. So this is one of the fundamental trade-offs, I guess, difficult questions to answer, and it's a question that everyone who gets into crypto assets has to answer for themselves, which is what is my acceptable trade-off between freedom and responsibility, right? How much risk am I willing to take on myself versus how much risk am I willing to put into a trusted third party and trust that they will take care of all of these other issues. So ultimately, with our solution, it is possible to screw up so badly that you lose all of your money, but the way that we've set it up, you ought to have to screw up, 3 different ways simultaneously, which we hope, should be a low enough probability that it should never happen. Have you launched the product? Is it working?
Yes. The Vault product has been up and running for several months at this point, and we're onboarding users slowly but surely. It is a high-touch service, at least for getting started up. We actually do one-on-one customer onboarding to walk you through the product. It's not a complicated product, but we want to make sure that you understand all of the different features and ins and outs and how to recover from certain disaster scenarios, because it's actually built into our product where if you have a disaster and you lose one of your keys, it gets destroyed, gets stolen, whatever, you can actually just go buy a new device off the shelf, plug it in, and walk through the wizard in the app to reconstitute your wallet. If you lose 2 devices at the same time, then you have to come to us and we can pull out the one key that we do keep in a vault on your behalf and help get you back into a good situation. But ultimately, if you lose 3 at the same time, there's nothing in it.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, the last 2 questions. Sure. I remember. First question. Okay. Does a Bitcoin core developer or a Cypherpunk or a geek or whatever, a computer wizard, let's assume, like you, care about the price? Or should people like you care about the price? Or do you care about the price? Bitcoin or whatever? Or you just focus on the technology and evolving it?
Well, you know, I can only speak for myself, and at least most of the early adopter developer folks. Back in the day, the developers never really talked about, you know, grand aspirations of the price going to the moon or anything like that. But rather, they were there ideologically because they wanted to build a censorship-resistant monetary system where, you know, we could basically have more sovereignty and more privacy than what we can get from the existing banking network. So we never really saw that type of price talk from the developers. You know, that may have changed with newer developers getting into it and also getting invested. But, you know, everyone has their own story, and so while I, of course, am interested in the price from a financial independence point of view, and one of the reasons why I was able to go full-time in the first place is that the system grew to a point that, you know, there was venture capital funding coming in, and a lot of investors were, you know, seeing money, you know, everywhere, and so that allowed me to get a full-time job and start doing it a few years ago, and you know, keeping the ball rolling today. I mean, the increases in the price and the inflows of more money into the system do enable us to build more infrastructure, create more companies, and, you know, ultimately grow the size of the network by paying more people to help build the network. But, you know, once you have invested in one of these systems, now, of course, you have a kind of financial reason to spend more of your resources, whether it's your time, your skills, or your own money, what have you, to try to grow that system, you know, from an investment standpoint. So, you know, that's also, you know, a secondary reason other than just ideological reasons why I tend to spend almost all of my time these days working on the systems.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for coping with the technical problems, Jameson. It was a pleasure to meet you and have you here. I think you are a very, very valuable asset for the Bitcoin community all over the globe, all over the world. Hope you do great. Hope to see you again and enjoy your meeting with the organization of Bitcoin here in Athens. Thanks.